Alright, so now it's time for PHANTEKS. Hello.
OMG, we just got to PHANTEKS, receiving a brief from them on so many exciting products, and let's just dive right in with the Evolve X. They've refined everything about this enclosure that I love so much. So let's check out all the little upgrades, and they're little, but they're incremental, and there's so many of them that makes this case that I think would be one of the best premium enclosures that we'll see in 2018. So let's check it out. But huge thanks to our sponsors, PHANTEKS, Thermaltake, and Cooler Master for making Computex possible. Alright, so the first thing is the price. The Evolve X will run for $199, will launch in August, and just to give you a reference point, because that seems like on the higher end of scale at $199, the original Evolve ATX ran for $189, and the amount of features they've improved on here, just the list is huge, so the $10 premium doesn't seem so bad. So let's start with the exterior. Basically, they've refined the original design with tons of improvements. They've maintained the same characteristics of the original Evolve, but improved airflow. So the length of the case is the same, but the height has increased by 10 millimeters. So the top is slightly higher with larger ventilation area. And airflow in this case has been somewhat of a concern over the years, but now the surface area for the front intake is 3 times larger versus the original, and the top one is 5 times larger than the original. So there's higher spacing between edges of paneling, and interior spacing is deeper, so the distance from the fans to the paneling has been increased to improve airflow. They've also added new lighting effects, as you can see, so 2 large ambient strips at the front. I love how they're behind the panel, sort of revealing this sort of like, you know, spacing between. They are digital RGB, so gradients are awesome. The color vibrancy is just incredible, while the side LED illumination is a high density LED, which means they've doubled on the LED amounts on the strip, so the gradient is much smoother. We no longer have these like chunky transitions as we saw on the P350X. And also the connection mechanism for the front panel is utilizing the 3-pin method, so it's toolless. You don't have to worry about reconnecting stuff, and that's convenient. Now in terms of the feature set, man, this is a long list. So the major focus was to not waste any space and just utilize things in smart ways. So the new I/O includes a Type-C Gen 2, which has a 50 centimeter long cable, so you can route it to your motherboard regardless of where the Type-C I/O Gen 2 on the motherboard is connected. We do have the 2 buttons for color and mode cycling. They've really put a lot of emphasis on making sure that there's proper airflow for intake and exhaust. So implemented small details like this radiator bracket at the top is removable and includes latches to actually catch the bracket, so reinstallation of things while you have your radiator on there is much easier. We also have cable clips for routing on that bracket, and a fill port in the right place, because many have asked for this feature. So you can build a high-end water cooling system. So if you're going for 140 millimeter width, you can do a 420 at the front or 280 at the top, or dual 360s, one on top, one in the front. We do have this magnetic cover at the top that prevents the recycling of air. So if you have a radiator that's exhausting air, you can position that little magnetic plate either at the front or the back, depending on where your radiator is located, and that will prevent the hot air from bouncing back into the case and recirculating that air. We have new locking points for the side panels, so they still swing to open like on the original, but you can secure them with thumb screws at the front. So if you're handling the case and carrying it, they will not open. There is now a drain port, something that people have been asking forever, and it's actually more important than your fill port. It's right at the front behind the panel, and you know, easy access. You can drain your liquid, refill your stuff, and boom. Now PHANTEKS is really focusing things on airflow, so they're trying to make their cases airtight. So the side panels have now this rubber seals around the perimeter, so for 1, air pressure, and 2, sound isolation. We also have a new anti-GPU sag bracket that installs behind the PCI slots that pushes on the heavy cards, therefore avoiding that sag. It's a really cool addition, and it's included with the Evolve X. Coming inside, we have a new power supply shroud design. So there's a power supply cutout revealing your unit behind it. There's a new GPU cable cutout. It is still a prototype, but it can slide, thus kind of, you know, closing in that gap. So if you have a thinner cables, you can have less of a gap. If it's a standard round cable, it can open it a bit more. And now we have 3 vertical brackets, which is awesome. So if you want to offset your dual slot GPU closer to the motherboard to create that spacing, that's a possibility. Or if you have a triple slot graphics card for that vertical mount, that is also now a possibility. The new cable covers beside the motherboard are awesome because they cover that entire section, which hides the like all the SSD mounts and stuff behind it, and they can also slide to accommodate for motherboards. So if you install an E-ATX motherboard, you can slide those covers to the right, closer to the front panel, thus revealing more area for cables to pass through. And if you have an ATX motherboard, you can close those sections. It's a brilliant design that it just works. Now, in order to showcase the full potential of the Evolve X, PHANTEKS had basically built this professional server-grade system with 8 hard drives and 9 SSDs. Now, the case can support up to 10 hard drives simultaneously, all thanks to these new hard drive brackets, which are stackable and they can be hanged on the interior or stacked at the very bottom. We have a new cable management system with these doors that swivel to open. They're toolless, so no need for screws, and they're attached via clips. We have improved cable tie points, which are separated into 2 channels, so you can have one for your thicker cables, one for thinner I/O cables. And we have these SSD panels that open up fully and hide the cables behind it. And we have 3 more SSDs that can be installed on this new cover beside the power supply. And so the upgrade of this section is brilliant because not only do these covers allow for you to hide your cable mess, even though if you're not necessarily attaching all your cables to cable tie points and Velcro straps, they also act for your storage. So 3 SSDs per bracket, that's awesome. And routing all of that is kind of, you know, within the vicinity of the power supply. We also have a new PWM fan hub for 9 fans, or you can use Y splitters to expand that count with awesome top location so you can route all your fans easily. But PHANTEKS did have something up their sleeve, and so now we have this $15 ITX bracket. That's right, it has its own power button and this removable top rear plate on the actual case for the motherboard I/O. So it basically installs a radiator bracket up top, and there you have a second ITX system inside your ATX case. That is brilliant. Now, it does need its own power supply, so that's where Revolt X comes into play. It can power 2 systems at once. But what about the GPU for the ITX system? And that is where the 60cm riser cable comes into play. So you can route it from the ITX motherboard all the way down, and you can have a total of 3 GPUs or more installed in this case. So 1 GPU for the ITX system, and it is, you know, offset closer to the side panel, so there is no interference with the main GPUs in your ATX motherboard. I do think they have something special in their hands to expand the popularity for dual systems inside a pretty compact enclosure. And so that is the Evolve X. What do you guys think of all the little upgrades? Make sure to check out our original review just to get a reference point of where we started basically to where we are now. But we also got to see a little sneak peek of this prototype, the Eclipse P600. So it will launch in end of Q3 with a lower price point than the Evolve X. So that's awesome to see. So this whole case is about switching between silence and performance. So it's got a quiet configuration with silent dampeners and seals on the window, with high airflow configuration at the same time if you open up the top and the front panels. You can angle the front panel so it's not completely removed, but removing it does not detract from the attractive looks. I think that's a good focus from PHANTEKS part, so you can have a silent system that's a little bit more elegant, or airflow focus system that still looks pretty elegant. Now, the cool thing about the P600 is the new mesh fabric on the top and the front. So it is better for airflow and holds some large dust particles, and there's a finer dust filter on the inside to catch the smaller ones. This new mesh fabric is about 10% better for airflow than your metal mesh, and it allows PHANTEKS to experiment with different fabric materials, color choices, textures, and so it has this both functionality for airflow and looks. It allows for light leak to go through, so, you know, any lighting will be visible. It's a cool direction, and I can't wait to see the final result. The interior is based on the Evolve X, so all the same feature set with improved things. Glass panels are on hinges. You can upgrade to a dual system. It will be a steel construction and not aluminum like on the Evolve X. And there are no SSD panels behind the motherboard tray because the side panel here is solid, so you don't necessarily need to cover everything up. The one cool thing about the front panel is the direction of the ventilation, channeling any noise that escapes towards the back of the case, thus making a sort of a quieter system. And the spacing between the fans and the front panel is adequate, and you know, I don't think it should impede airflow. And the last thing to cover are fans. So PHANTEKS is designing new ones because they have expertise in case airflow. So they want to build something that accommodates their own cases for more silent operation, better CFM, and higher static pressure, so that if you have paneling and radiator and dust filters, all of that is not compromising on the cooling potential of those default case fans. So these new fans have new blade design that minimizes the gap between the blades and the frame. They've increased the thickness of the frame itself, so about 30 millimeters instead of your 25 which on the original, which gives us more static pressure. The sound quality has improved with smoother sound waves, so it gives quiet operation, and cable management has been a part of their thinking, so you can daisy chain multiple fans at the front with a single cable and then plug that 4-pin PWM connector into your motherboard. All right, so as usual, it's awesome to see PHANTEKS working on those little details and improvements to make you guys happy, to make the assembly process easier, to make airflow better, because that's been a huge part of discussion for 2018. Cable management is improved with new paneling, you know, just diverse options for the builds, water cooling, dual systems, complete server rack with like, you know, 10 hard drives inside a case. That is awesome. Modularity to the level that we have come to expect. All right, guys, so let me know what you think of the Evolve X. Make sure to check out this other relevant content, and yeah, we'll see you in the next video.